Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of Explore and Engage with Anam. I want to thank you all for staying connected with me and for continuing to listen to my podcast. If you have not signed up for my e-newsletter yet, please do so. You can go to my website, tossifanam.net, and you can sign up for my e-newsletter. My friends, let me start today's episode by talking about insurance premiums. Insurance premiums have gone up for a lot of people. Even when a person has not filed any claim in the recent past, the person may still discover that premiums have gone up. And let me tell you, cost of repairs have also gone up. Cost of materials have gone up, and we know that inflation and supply chain crisis are hurting Americans. Let's not forget, my friends, that inflation erodes the value of money, and people are very, very frustrated as a result. As American consumers are receiving renewal notices for their insurance policies, many are realizing that premiums are rising. And that's an additional burden for hardworking Americans on top of every other problem that people are facing in this economy. And the list of financial challenges that people are facing is very long. It's a long list. Let me mention a few things. Mortgage rates have risen sharply and significantly. Rent has gone up. So that means that housing has become more expensive in general. Gas prices are pretty high, and this is something that I've talked about in my podcast, and I will continue to talk about it because energy is so important. Energy costs have gone up overall, and energy is so important. We need energy for our home, for our place of work, for transportation. And when I go to the gas station to purchase gas, I can see that prices are so high, and prices have remained high for quite a long time now. Let me mention, since President Biden came to office, that's when we started seeing all these changes. And with the Biden administration in charge, people are paying a lot of money for gas. Gas prices are very high. A lot of Americans are afraid that they may have to come out of retirement and go back to working again. And I'm talking about senior citizens, people who have retired. They have worked for many, many years. They have retired, and it's time for them to enjoy their retirement. But many senior citizens in this economy are struggling. And so a lot of seniors are realizing that they may actually have to come out of retirement and then go back to work. And it's really sad when you analyze the whole situation. When it's time for senior citizens to enjoy their retirement, many are having to think of finding employment again to pay for everyday things that now cost more money than they anticipated. This is how inflation not only hurts people's budget, but inflation also hurts people's peace of mind. My friends, let's talk about back to school. We hear the words back to school around this time of the year. And as a new academic year starts, there are many expenses associated with it. Parents have to do a lot of shopping for their children, and in this economy, that can be very challenging because everything now costs more money. If parents are struggling to buy back-to-school supplies for their children, that experience can be very stressful. The average American family is thousands of dollars poorer now compared to the time when President Biden first came to office. And so people are worse off now, and it's because of President Joe Biden's policies. Now, how many $1,000 worse off are we? Some will say around 5,000, but I think the number is much greater than that. That's my assessment. There's a dollar figure that you can come up with to determine how much worse off you are. And you can do that by analyzing your budget, looking at your income, and examining your expenses and understanding the effect of inflation, and then you can come up with a number. But how are you going to quantify the pain and suffering and stress because of the Biden administration's economic policies? Americans are stressed and they are worried. And how do you quantify that suffering? As Americans continue to suffer, liberal politicians are prioritizing migrants. I have talked about the border crisis before in my podcast. I've talked about the situation in New York, in Chicago, in California with the migrants, the migrant crisis, because foreign nationals are pouring into the United States and they are going to sanctuary cities like New York and Chicago to look for housing and shelter. And liberal politicians are asking for more money. They are asking for more help and more support for the migrants. Chicago is a big example. Mayor Brandon Johnson is asking for federal help to support the migrants. Federal help for the migrants. What about American citizens? Who is going to help American citizens? So much of focus now seems to be on the migrants, while there are many American citizens who are struggling. Liberal politicians are prioritizing migrants over American citizens. My friends, it's Labor Day in America. It's a long weekend, and people during this time, they try to relax. They try to enjoy the long weekend. But guess what's happening? New York City Health Department officials are busy trying to convince people to start wearing masks again. And why is that? Reportedly, COVID cases are on the rise. So government officials are once again asking people to wear masks. Here's what I will tell you. Make your own decision. This is a free country. We are free. We have freedom. And if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask. That's what I tell myself. And it is highly, highly disappointing to see that New York City Health Department officials are trying to convince people to wear masks again. My friends, if you want to know more about my opinion regarding masks, you can read some of the opinion pieces that I have written. In fact, recently I wrote a letter to the editor of a newspaper here in Wisconsin, in which I wrote about masks. And in that letter to the editor, I wrote against mask mandate. I have written against mask mandate in the past. And in my recent published letter to the editor, I wrote against mask mandate. Mask mandate, vaccine mandate, all these COVID-related restrictions, stay-at-home orders, capacity limits. I spoke and wrote against these government rules and regulations because I saw what happened during the COVID outbreak. Because of all these restrictions, many businesses, many small businesses suffered. faced huge losses, and many Americans suffered because they were forced to wear masks, and because many businesses were forced to go through this capacity limit. Restaurants suffered a lot. And so if you want to read more about my views on these issues, you can check out my blog. Go to tosifanam.net. You can read my blog posts from 2020 and 2021, 2022. And then you can also find a list of published opinions on my website. And you can read those and know more about my views on these issues. But I'll tell you this, that government officials should not have the power to dictate people. They should not have the power to tell people whether to wear masks or not. It should be people's own personal decision. There are people who prefer wearing masks. There are those who don't. And people should be free to make their own decisions. And the same goes for vaccination. People should be able to make their own decisions. If somebody wants to go get the COVID vaccine, that person can go get the COVID vaccine. If somebody does not want to get the COVID vaccine, that individual should not be forced to get the COVID vaccine. My friends, that's all for today. Share with me your thoughts and comments. Once again, I'll mention my website, tosifanam.net. You can go there. You can send me a message. You can connect with me on social media. Let me know your thoughts. Once again, thank you for staying connected, and thank you for continuing to listen to my podcast. I hope to be back again soon with a new episode of Explore and Engage with Anam.